Well, hello there, everybody. My name is Roger Durling, and I'm the executive director of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And I'm so honored to be amongst these incredible four actors who formed the ensemble of the movie One Night in Miami, directed by the incredible Regina King. And it's based on the Kemp Powers play. And with me, we have Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays Malcolm X, Eli Goree, who plays Cassius Clay, Aldis Hodge, who plays Jim Brown, and Tony Award winner Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Sam Cooke. Welcome, guys. So honored again to have you with us. Leslie, I'm going to start right with you and ask you about the fact that the conversation that happens that in that evening amongst the four of you is that happened 40 years earlier. And the conversation, of course, deals with racial injustice, religion, and personal responsibility. And it resonates so much. It must have been resonating as you guys were filming it. But now, after what has transpired this past summer and this past few months, the conversation resonates even deeper, cuts deeper. Can you tell us your impression about that? Oh, you're muted, Leslie.
Sorry. I have a toddler running around. I mute for your benefit. Or else you'd hear a
No worries.
screaming little girl running around. Um, the Bible says, and they shall know the truth, and the truth shall make them free. The truth shall make them free. And there's something about, mm, you hear that little girl? You hear? There's something about what we're living through. Um, I don't know if it's because of our collective exhaustion or because of, we've just been, we're tender and raw in so many ways. We're telling more truth to each other right now. I know I feel it. I wonder if you guys feel it too. I've gotten more honest in some of my relationships. Some people I've known for 20 years, some of my white brothers and sisters, we are talking to each other with more truth than we ever have before. So we are freer. Kemp's script made me a freer version of myself. I saw what he was doing in his script. He wanted to have a private conversation publicly, and that's daring. I was thinking about it recently. I mean, this movie does not push the boundaries in film of violence or sex, which are usually the ways that we are
Mhm.
daring on film. We're pushing those boundaries. This is a conversation, but there's something a little dangerous about it. It's because we're telling more truth. What Kemp wanted to do was to tell more truth about these four men and about the experience of Black people on this soil.
Mhm. I'll follow up with, the movie is very specific, but to me, it even was able to speak to me about social responsibility. In the past few months, we have gone through this journey that is made me question the our am I doing enough, the social
Mm,
responsibility. And I just wondering how you felt about your character and the fact that
mm.
these four talented icons are struggling with the idea of social responsibility.
Right. Well, I appreciate you saying that you're questioning social responsibility because I feel like when I read the script, that was one of the greatest tools that I felt, or at least had the most potential to affect our audience in that way, with having them question themselves, with saying, am I doing enough? Can I be doing more? What am I actually doing now in regards to this particular subject? I know within the Black community we have this conversation all the time. I was raised with it. So for these men, I know that from the outside looking in, a lot of us see the sort of the magnitude of their accomplishments, and we see who they became. And right now we get to see them in that space, but still realize they're human beings and they still are not absolved or removed from the effects of being Black in America. They still have to have these questions and have these conversations. But to a greater effect, like many today who are using their platforms in the best ways possible, we are also seeing these four men challenge each other and challenge themselves with asking, what should we be doing? Because this not only affects us, this affects all of us. This affects our entire culture. The only difference with us is that we have access to different tools that we can use to help people in a different way. So how do we do that? And I feel like we see a conversation about men who are actually in the transitional period of evolution. They are growing up to the full potential that they need to meet for who they are at this particular time. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because a lot of what they've done and what they kind of sort of, you know, set the tone for, we still reap the benefits of some of those actions.
Eli, one of the things that I was so impressed with the script and with the performances of the four of you is that we rarely in cinema see four men be vulnerable. Can you talk about that, and is that something that you were sensitive to when you were working on the project?
Absolutely. I think it boils down to really just being truthful. And I think we don't get to see full representations of human beings when we see men on screen often, especially when we see Black men on screen. Um, and with these four individuals in particular, they were such stalwart examples and kind of icons of masculinity that it was kind of almost looked at as a negative for them to have any kind of vulnerable side or holistic representation. And I think what Kemp did and what Regina did is that they saw that they were just kind of being projected as, in the past, that they just kind of been projected as these kind of stereotypes, in a sense, archetypes, maybe a less stronger word. Whereas they wanted to show that these were real human beings, that they had families that they loved, that they were afraid to die, that they, that they, even though they were strong physically, that they couldn't, Jim Brown, Cassius Clay, they couldn't fight all of American prejudice and racism with their hands, that they were vulnerable, that they had weaknesses in character, which we don't like to say about our heroes, but that weaknesses in character are actually what allow them, through their overcoming of those things, to be as great as they are. It's in their struggles and in their trials and in their missteps that they learn and that they grow and that they become, all that they were called to be. And so I think it's not just the vulnerability, it's the honesty. And I think Leslie said it best, the truth and the truth will set you free. It was true representations of full human beings. Malcolm X cries, Cassius Clay loses his temper, Aldis Jim Brown, questions his place in America and where he fits in, even though he's a superstar and has to deal and has to be humbled by racist bigots, and can't just pick them up and beat them up like he did in his films. Sam Cooke, was challenged on how authentically, on his Christianity and on his Blackness. These are historical things that he had to deal with, and they're tough things. They're I know as artists, me and Leslie and Kingsley and Aldis, we have to deal with these things as Black artists, as Black male artists, that we are often marginalized, that we're often not allowed to be everything that we are, or told that we shouldn't be everything that we are, or expected to hide certain aspects of ourselves or embellish things that aren't necessarily there in order to be able to make a place for ourselves in this industry and in this world. So I think right now we're in a time where Black people are saying we have a voice. We've always had that section of ourselves, but I think it's resonating in a certain way and in a certain time right now. Black people are saying, I can be a unique person. I don't have to be a cookie cutter mold. I don't have to fit into your narrative. I can be everything that I'm supposed to be and live in my fullness and truthfulness of who I am. I think that's what we admired about those guys. I think that's what this film allows us to have as well.
Wow. Yeah, Kingsley, can you actually? This question could be to the four of you, but I'll address it to you. The responsibility of stepping into the shoes of an icon like Malcolm X. Can you tell us about your journey with that?
Yeah. So much of the attraction to this project was to do with really discovering on first read that there was an angle on Malcolm in this that I felt was unique and kind of radical and scary and challenging and different. And it was very attractive for that reason, and also Regina, and the stakes were just generally high for so many reasons. I think when an audition like this comes through and Regina's going to be watching, there's an energy and an enthusiasm that you fucking go at it with. I think the most nervous I was in that auditioning process, because I wanted it a lot, and I felt like there was something about Malcolm in this story that I really connected with, and I thought I could really bring to life. The problem was only having a few days to get something down on tape. I think once the auditioning and the meeting and the back and forth with Regina and speaking to Aldis on the phone for hours and screen testing with Leslie and then talking to Regina on the phone again, like once I'd landed the role, I feel like the pressure and the responsibility, I wasn't thinking about it. It was just about using every minute and an hour of every day to like get under it and as much of Malcolm in me as I possibly could, and just come in and enjoy and make the most of the experience and the opportunity. So yeah, it's only now looking back and as the film's sort of coming out and, doing lots of these Q&As and like hearing the boys talk and just the scale of who Regina is and the status and the weight and the talent that she brings to this. It's all kind of dawning on me now, and it's kind of surreal. But yeah, the responsibility was an awesome responsibility, and like I just thoroughly enjoyed it and loved every minute of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and Kingsley, just a quick follow up. The Denzel Washington in Malcolm X, it didn't
want to say his name, but yeah.
It didn't loom over you.
No, I thought it was really exciting because when I first read it for Cash, and I was like, I'm too old. I can't, there's a brother out there who's going to kill this much better than I can. But there was something about Malcolm in this that I thought was really fucking different. It was nothing like, there was an angle on this. Like, if you're going to do a part that someone else has basically mic dropped, that character and performance with, there has to be a completely different angle. Otherwise, you're just like you're wasting your time. It's not useful for anyone. But this, I felt, was a Malcolm that just in Kemp's words, Kemp was asking you, as an actor to tap into that vulnerable side and that humanity. And yeah, that felt kind of wild, and I remember there was a couple of, we were constantly in conversations about the vulnerability and like, how far do we go? And like, are we pushing it too much? Like, and we were challenging each other on that. But so much of my conversations with Regina were about, let's show the husband, let's show the father, let's show the friend, let's show the gentle, let's show the sweet and bashful side to Malcolm that we haven't seen. Let's show the man who was probably felt at times like completely lost and like on his own, like, and I mean, the pressure that he was under and like the changes that were going on in his life and being pushed out of the nation and his relationship with Elijah Muhammad coming to an end. I mean, just as an act, just creatively speaking, there was just so much room there to kind of like try and create something that was a little bit different. And these boys have had me say this a million times, but it's this wonderful article that I found. Dick Gregory, a dear friend of Malcolm's, just spoke about his humanity and his vulnerability in a way that I hadn't heard or had access to. And he said that Malcolm said to him around this time, as he was leaving the nation, or being pushed out rather, that he felt weak and he felt hollow, and that no one knew the torments that he was going through. And that just blew my mind, because it was the lacerating demagogue that we all know, Dick said, was really a character that he slipped in and out of. And if he was here now listening to us, he'd be embarrassed. It didn't sum up who Malcolm was entirely. So that was evidence enough for me to be like, let's try and find a way to truthfully walk the line of finding a side to Malcolm's humanity that we haven't seen before, but still try and keep it, the essence of him and all of that. So, yeah.
Leslie, in a film, in a movie that has incredible, powerful moments, you have the moment of singing and a change is going to come, which the words resonate, ring so true now. Can you tell us about singing that song and as Sam and what it meant to you?
Well, it was absolutely the scene that I was most afraid of. I have to tell you from the bottom of my heart, in all honesty, when I got hired to do this movie, I was properly afraid, I think appropriately afraid. But there was one thing that I knew I wasn't going to have to be afraid of, because I just assumed that whomever they hired to play Sam would lip sync to Sam's songs. So that is not something that even occurred to me, that because I didn't have to do any singing in the meetings with Regina, and nobody ever brought it up. So I was like, if anything, I have to kind of worry about, like, I got to get the lip sync right, but as a week or so after I got the part, these recording sessions started to show up on my calendar, and I called my team, like, what are these sessions in the studio? What is this? And they said, oh, you have to pre-record some of the Sam stuff, like you send me and stuff, they're going to play that in the music. I had no idea. So then I had a new chance to, new things to be worried about. But I'm so happy the way the scheduling worked, because we shot that scene. I did sing A Change Is Gonna Come live that day. We shot that scene. That was my final day in New Orleans. So I shot that scene. I'll say I didn't arrive in New Orleans really understanding much about, Sam or what I was going to do, or, I was barely hanging on, trying to get to the first day of shooting. But after after having shot all the stuff in the hotel room with these guys, I learned who Sam was. In addition to my research and things, I learned who he was through the interrogation of these other guys, of Malcolm, of Cassius, of Jim. Being in relationship with these guys taught me who he was. And so by the time we shot A Change Is Gonna Come, he'd never been closer to me than he was on that day. And I understood the breaths. I understood the velocity. I understood who he was. And I'm glad I did. Not a moment too soon. By the time I had to sing that aria, I really understood something of Sam.
Wow. Well, it's an incredibly powerful moment. Aldis, your Jim Brown. I was so impressed that you capture the quiet strength of Jim, and the mannerisms. Can you tell us about finding Jim?
Finding him to me came through the research that I did, where he was challenging and having these debates on camera, on recordings, and I just kind of studied his demeanor and his spirit with which he sort of had these conversations. and what motivated certain opinions, you know? So when it came to this, the difference here is that, you know, he's talking to his brothers, you know, men who he respects equally, men who he knows and understands. And right now we're having a debate where we're trying to figure out how we can understand one another. And I think for him, he sort of maintains a position of observation through most of this film, hearing one side, hearing the other, and then trying to find where he can cut in the middle and have that conversation to translate the meaning, you know, just like when he's sitting there with Malcolm and he's having that conversation to try to kind of explain what Sam is saying and what Sam's position is. And at the same time, it's another means of him to explain to Malcolm what he's going through as well. And I love the scene so much because it is a real moment of peaceful bonding between the two men. There's no argument there. There's no animosity, no angst. It's just them trying to have a moment of understanding, brother to brother. This is what I'm going through, but I know you're going through something too. So how can help me help you, you know? But I think that he's at a transitional place in this film, and through the conversations amongst everyone, he's also questioning who and what he is to society, to himself, and who he wants to be. So, you know, I liked sort of being able to play with the duality of, you know, Jim is there to, you know, enjoy his time with his fellows, but at the same time, he's down to engage that necessary growth that is happening. You can't escape it. And he understands there's a reason for it. So, you know, he's a wise man. He's been through a lot, but again, he's transitioning from sports to film, and this is not a trivial interest. This is a business move because he's very astute with his business acumen, and that for him is something that's very important. He's sitting in the room with, you know, three other men who have grand positions and grand representation to their community. He's trying to figure out, like they're all trying to figure out, how can we best utilize this space and ourselves and our access to make it work for our people. But, you know, I think for him, finding him came through a means of observation, observing the room, observing the conversation, observing himself, and then figuring out what he wants to say and how he wants to say it, because he knows his goal from here is growth.
And Jim Brown is the only remaining of the four that is still alive. Did you get a chance to meet with him?
I didn't, but I'd like to meet with him after he sees the film, just to see what he thinks. You know, hope it did him proud. But that would be a cool conversation to have.
Eli, you've played a boxer in Riverdale, but you had to learn, of course, how to move like Cassius. You know, can you tell us about that development?
Yeah, the process.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I won't go into the long version of the story, but I had kind of had the dream of playing Cassius Clay for a long time, and I had kind of started to build my character in my personal life.
And did you audition for a movie with
So
Kingsley?
Yes, so I auditioned for a film about the trilogy fights between Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. I got to a point where I was meeting with Aang, and this damn talented actor from Britain named Kingsley Ben-Adir beat me out, and so I was crushed. I was devastated. I thought going to be like my big moment, and it didn't happen. And so after I didn't get it, I decided I was going to I felt like I favored Cassius Clay, and he was a big enough figure in the world that there would be other things that would come up, other times where his story would be told. I didn't know if it would be a TV role or what it would be, but I knew that he was big enough that there would be other times to play him. And so I decided I was just going to keep working on the character. And there was and these guys have heard this a million times, there was a teacher at my conservatory who had told me a story about Daniel Day-Lewis, that he had been preparing for There Will Be Blood. The budget had dropped out, and he stayed working on an oil rig for 2 years until someone found the script and found out that he was attached and said, we got to fund this film. And then they made the film. Everyone else was recast and he wins the Oscar. So so I was inspired by that, and I decided I'm going to just keep working on this character. So every role that I got, I did a show called Pearson, and they knew that. Then the writers found out, oh, he's trying to learn how to box. Okay, I'm going to incorporate that into the story. And then I did Riverdale, and they were like, oh, he's a boxer. Okay, let's put that in the story. But it was really because I was preparing to play Cassius. I was working on the accent. I found a fantastic dialect coach, Trey Cotton, who really helped me understand what it is to be a Black man in the South in America, and all that encompasses that culture, and to incorporate that into my voice and how people speak and how people process and communicate. There's a lot of detail there, but like even just something simple like the heat. He said, we talk slow. It's not because we're stupid. It's because it's so hot. And he said, and then you have the oppression on top of that. So you got to think before you talk. So, just so many subtle things that went into me understanding, first of all, just how to speak with a Southern Louisville, Kentucky accent. And then put on top of that, the affectations and the rhythms that everyone knows as.
Hey, Roger, can I ask Eli a question? Can I
Go
pretend to be
ahead,
you for a second?
please.
Eli, I love that you prepared so long for this part. Like I never get tired of hearing that story. I think there's so much in it for us to learn. After this movie, do you think you're done playing him, or like, do you think that there's another Ali project for you? Like, did you say what you had to say, or is there more that you have to say with Ali?
I love that question. Wow. Thank you. So several people have come to me since this and come to me with other projects, other Cassius Clay projects. There's another Muhammad Ali film. There was someone asked me if I wanted to do the play. There's been a few times people have mentioned it. And it's funny, just in the last time when we were all just talking, hearing Kingsley talk about his trajectory with the character, I realized that that's what I feel in my heart too, which is what he had said was, it's not in him anymore. It's like you get to a point where you put so much into this guy. And I know, I think you went to Thailand, Kingsley, and you were like really preparing to play him. And then the budget drops out, and for better or worse, but you get to a point where you've been in this guy for so long, and it just kind of leaves you. It's like, I feel like I don't have that energy in me anymore. I don't have that.
You got it out. You said what you came to say. Wow.
Yeah, I got it out.
Yeah. And Leslie, anytime you want to take over an interview, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
My
it's an honor to have Aaron Burr take over the interview for me.
Yes.
Kingsley, I want to ask you about the fact that most of the film is there's a lot of dialogue, it's heavy based dialogue, and also you're most of the time in one room. Can you tell us, from an actor's point of view, was that challenging? Was that the opposite of challenging? Was that exciting? To that fact that it was a lot of dialogue, that you were mostly in one room?
Yeah, I knew there was a huge task ahead in the time that we had. I think I was cast on the 21st of December, or no, like the 18th of December, and we were in New Orleans on the 2nd of Jan. So there was a 12-ish day period over Christmas where I was like going, well, I have to prioritize now and like pick what kind of research I'm going to do, and just kind of schedule it out and figure it out. I mean, you could research Malcolm for 2 years and still not be anywhere near. So one of the things that I did was I found a young guy who had just left drama school, and I paid him like $70 a day to come around here at 9 o'clock in the morning. And he stayed with me most days over Christmas. And we just banged out the text. Like I wanted to make sure when I arrived that I wasn't thinking about learning lines, that was done, and that the conversation that I could come in and have with Regina was really about like, what are we doing? And I think that was because so much of the emotional energy, particularly in the middle of the film, I thought was going to be completely dependent on Malcolm's inner turmoil. You know, I was like, that's really where the drama is. And if I fuck that up, then I'm going to fuck the film up. So like, there was a lot of pressure in terms of like making sure that I really got underneath what the best answer for that was for Regina when I turned up. What was your question again? I'm so sorry. I've just
No, it was about the fact that it was you were mostly in one room, and the fact that it was heavy based on dialogue.
Okay,
It's all right.
We've done a few of these. We've done a few of these. Sometimes we forget the question.
No, that's all right. Hey, the answer, whatever you were saying, was so fascinating that it doesn't really matter.
Oh, so do you know when you're just ranting and you're like, am I answering the question? Am I just like talking absolute breeze? But no, I was like, how did I get there? It's because you're asking about the lines and like learning the lines. And yes, learning the lines for this was a huge part of it, because you go like, if I come in and I don't know, I can't drive through. If I can't drive through those 14 pages, these guys are going to suffer, you know, like there's something about the energy of Malcolm in that room that was needed to keep the ball up. So I did feel that pressure. And that's why I had this, his name was Andrew Buzzio, and he came over here. We ran those lines hundreds of times. Like, and I always remember Anthony Hopkins saying that he runs his lines at least 250 times. So I had that in my head. So it's just repeating like a lunatic. But what I'll say is I think I was under a different sort of pressure to these guys, which is, you know, or maybe not Eli, because he's from Canada, but coming in as a Brit, I was like, yeah, I felt the pressure of not fucking it, you know? And so I think I overly obsessed with the, you know, the technical side of it and making sure the lines were in. So.
And but you mentioned something that I actually like to ask the four of you, is that the movie has this tonal shifts, and they're very subtle, where, you know, you start bonding relationship wise, and then all this bruising allegations start coming out, and they're all this, I'm repeating myself, but subtle tonal shifts in your acting and within the script. Was that something difficult to handle and navigate?
Regina.
Yeah, it's Regina. Yeah.
And Trey Cotton, we had a brilliant dialect coach on this film. So helpful. But he said to me one day, I don't even know if he mentioned it to everybody else, but he said, you know, because Trey didn't watch us while we were shooting, he was listening. And he's like, when you guys find it, you sound like a jazz quartet. The pitches, I can just by listening, I know who's talking. You guys all sound like you're playing jazz together in the same band. And, you know, when you're playing jazz music, it's spontaneous. There's variety in it. You know, it doesn't mean that sometimes we lock into the same, you know, melody for a couple bars, but then somebody solos and they inspire the rest of the group. And so, wait, what was your question again? I had a point. What was the question again?
It was about the tonal shift.
Yeah, but I think that we could play jazz, but we had a great piece of, you know, of music that Kemp gave us with that script. So those tonal shifts, once we learned through repetition that Kingsley was talking about, I felt the same thing. Once I learned my passages, I mean, really, really learned them, I felt Kemp's rhythms. And Kemp was so in touch with Sam's rhythms that it was like, you start to, instead of feeling like you're manipulating it or that you're playing it, it starts to play you. You become the instrument. And when we were really on a roll, I certainly felt like I was being used. I was being carried along a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Regina is I think wholly responsible for a lot of that rhythm, just because she really kept us on track. And she was very communicative in terms of helping us understand what those shifts needed to be and why. The points in the movie where we needed to understand a specific vulnerability or a specific access to somebody's either mindset or their emotion. Regina always knew, and she was a master painter, and she was just hitting us with those brush strokes every take, just letting us know, okay, you're on. Let's push it a little bit more. Let's bring it back. But you know, the rhythm between us, amongst us rather, is partly due to what the message is and how we're trying to really, I guess, deliver it. But it's also, you know, the rhythm is also the pacing of the film. So as we're bumping through this, we're keeping you here, and that takes really a great conductor to you know. So to speaking to Leslie's metaphor about the jazz band, we do have a great conductor, you know, who's really who really took charge, and her vision was clear, and she just really understood how to get us to where we needed to be, even in the moments where we may have been unsure or uncertain of ourselves or the scene or the placement. She knew, you know, and she had a very sharp eye for understanding what the true vision, the full vision of this film was yet to be.
You guys, I'm hoping that one of you have the answer to the question. Terence Blanchard, one of the greatest composers, did the score, but it's a piano subtle score. Do you know why that choice was made? Go ahead, Eli.
Well, Terrence Blanchard is my all-time favorite musical score of films. His early stuff with Spike is just obviously iconic. It's amazing. I was supposed to see him like 3 times in concert, and every time I ended up working. It really frustrated. So when I found out he was doing this, I was super excited. And I talked to Regina, and she specifically said that because of the stripped down nature of the film, and because of the time period that they were in, that they didn't want to have the robust, you know, full orchestral or jazz, you know, style that he normally did. That they really felt like this was a room about these guys in this place in this room, and that it was supposed to be. It was a stripped down. It was coming from a play. It was very stripped down and very essentialist, for lack of a better word. I don't even know if that is a word. So he wanted to highlight that by using just the piano. It was a very intentional choice that they made to try and capture the essence of that period and that time, to kind of capture the essence of also just the look and the feel of these guys in this room, in this one place, in this very basic setting, with this very kind of with just the piano to accent it, to kind of capture that feeling and that vibe that they were going through. So it was definitely Terrence and Regina. I talked to her specifically, and she told me that because I'm a huge Terrence Blanchard fan.
Well, he's a genius. And then I want to ask you about the prosthetics and about the hair. That you know, it's very subtle. I mean, you don't fully become the other character, but it was that helpful, Leslie, the prosthetics and the hair.
Yeah, you guys know, you know as well as anybody, some constraints and limitations as challenging as they are, they really, you know, they force creativity. You know, you give an artist a prompt, and then constraints. You know, you draw a little parameter around in some way, and then, you know, we go to the wall, you know, we go to the limits of it. And this, we were limited with time and money. There was more that I wanted to do to get closer to Sam. You know, I really wanted to make a transformation. We all did, you know. And so it was just working with that team. I'm so glad you brought them up. It was working with the hair and makeup team, the Regina and the producers, and finding out what we could do, because we were limited. What we could do, what we should do. You know, there was, so I have a nose. I don't know if everybody knows that, but Sam, you know, his face had a very particular, so the nose, the wig, obviously, there was a chin that came so close. If we could have got that chin right, man, y'all wouldn't have even recognized me, because he had this square jaw that was just, he looked like a black Ken doll. He's so handsome. And so there was something I thought that, like, about his face that was really the nose and that chin, that square jaw, that I wanted. We couldn't get the chin, so I had to act the chin. No, they did paint, they did some painting to evoke that, but I think the constraints helped us to some extent,
Mm-hmm. Aldis, I do have to ask you, one of the, to me, beautiful moments is where you're in the bathroom in the mirror and the scars that Jim has in his hands. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so they actually dialed it in, because his knuckles went through a lot with football. But what I'm noticing is that I actually have those. Those are actually real. I have a lot of calluses. I work with my hands all day, but it told the story. It told the struggle. He put blood, sweat, and tears into what he had earned. So that the bathroom scene, I remember talking to Regina about the symbolism of it and him going in and what that meant to take that moment of reflection, looking at and understanding all he's gone through to earn what he has, and now he has to figure out what to do with it. It meant a lot, because there are so many of us who have gone through so much. For him, it's his fingers, but a lot of us go through pain in so many different ways just to get through earning what we feel is rightly deserved. And, also the reflection that he's having in terms of what he needs to be doing, because after that, he does have that conversation with Malcolm about understanding how people see him and how he sees himself going through the world. It was a moment of, I think for him, taking a necessary pause that sometimes we need to take in life, just to sit down and say, let me look at everything, let me cut out the noise and just figure out who I am in this moment. And I love the symbolism of it. And I think I did have a few other things. Like, I had some plumpers in my face the entire time. Acting with those can be a little weird because you can't eat with those. So that was fun, having to go in and out of lunch and snackage. But yeah, they did a wonderful job really going over everything, just even down to the haircuts and understanding what, getting that right shape, getting the right, we had a crack team when it came to every single department. Everybody was 100%.
That's great. And Kingsley, I want to ask you the last question, and you guys are welcome to chime in after Kingsley speaks about what is it that you want people to get out of One Night in Miami?
Do you know what? I've been. That's one question that genuinely I feel like I'm the worst person to ask. I feel like, and I don't mean that in a rude way. It's just, I guess I'm always sort of thinking about films and projects so much in terms of, yes, the story in a sense, and the narrative, does it work and does it represent something? And of course, and is there an interesting debate going on? But I just get I've been so wrapped up in the I don't really know. I found an answer. To be engaged emotionally and to really listen, like I hope we've created something that grabs attention, and that I always hope that my brother, who has no interest in film or TV or anything, I always sort of work and go like, I wonder if he'll be engaged. I wonder when he'll become bored. Will he become bored? What? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what I hope, And then the conversation's the conversation. The film is the film. The subject matter is the subject matter. That's gonna people are either gonna connect or respond to that, or they're not. Do you know what I mean? It's like we've done what we can do. But yeah, in terms of hoping that people connect with the larger themes and stuff, I kind of that's handed over now. Like I can't change that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gents, it's been amazing talking to you. I'm a big fan of each and every one of you, and it's congratulations, amazing film, one of the best
Thank you.
films of the year.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Roger.
yeah, absolutely. Happy holidays.
You too.
Happy holidays. Take care.